We all have a relationship with lawns, don't we? Often it's this surprising mix of love and hate. Maybe you love that fresh cut scent. Maybe you just dread the endless mowing. Today we're doing a deep dive into the fascinating world of lawns. We're drawing insights from Barbara Damrosch's The Garden Primer. Our mission really is simple. We want to pull out the most important nuggets of knowledge, help you understand why lawns even exist, whether you really need one, and, how to create and maintain a green space that's, well, both beautiful and genuinely environmentally responsible. This is especially for those of you wanting practical, sustainable living tips, but without getting totally swamped by information overload.
Exactly. And this isn't just about cutting grass. It's really about understanding the deeper implications of our landscape choices. We'll try to uncover how even small changes can have a surprisingly big impact, connecting the dots, between your yard and the broader ecosystem. Prepare for maybe some real aha moments about what that patch of green actually means for you and, well, for the planet.
All right, let's unpack this then. It's easy to focus on the downsides, I think, but lawns do offer some wonderful benefits. Think about it. They're cool underfoot, soft, green. They put oxygen into the air, absorb dust, absorb rain, and unlike, say, pavement, they don't reflect that glaring sun. Aesthetically, yeah, they tie a landscape together. They provide a backdrop for trees, for flower gardens, and let's not forget how useful they are. Perfect surfaces for walking, running, playing frisbee, maybe hosting a barbecue. Plus, for a lot of people, there's that distinct, really pleasant smell after a fresh cut.
But then, then there's the other side, the stark reality of the modern lawn. They're just notoriously high maintenance, aren't they? Primarily because of the constant mowing. And that quest for, a perfect uniform look, it often leads to excessive use of noisy, polluting gas engine machines. What's really startling, I think, is the heavy reliance on tons, literally tons, of pesticides, fungicides, herbicides, chemical fertilizers every year. Not to mention the lavish use of water, even in places prone to drought, and their ability to absorb heavy rainfall, often exaggerated, which means you get chemical runoff into our waterways. Yeah. Ecologically, most traditional lawn grasses are sterile, non-native species. They do almost nothing to sustain local wildlife. The author even provocatively suggests, she says a chemically dosed lawn might only be slightly more ecologically benign than AstroTurf.
Wow, AstroTurf.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's provocative. I never would have thought of it quite like that. So, okay, if our traditional lawns are such a burden, why are we so attached to them? What's the deep sort of cultural thing going on?
It's a really fascinating question, isn't it? The author suggests it might be a kind of cultural memory, a flashback perhaps to living amidst meadows or prairies, or maybe even deeper, our ancestral memory of African savannas. In those open grassy areas, our ancestors would have had a clear view, unobstructed, of both predator and prey, essential for survival. So this suggests our fondness for open green spaces is actually quite natural, almost ingrained.
Yeah.
The problem isn't the green space itself, it's how we've, industrialized it, made it chemically dependent, the modern lawn. The core insight maybe is that our instinct for a clear view is ancient, but our modern expression of that desire, it needs a serious rethink.
That makes a lot of sense, a deep-seated preference that's kind of been warped by modern expectations. So that raises a really big question for listeners then. Do you actually need a lawn? I know some communities, HOAs, they have rules. The author even mentions homeowners being sued for planting wildflower meadows instead of turf grass. How do we navigate that?
You're absolutely right. There can be those implicit or explicit requirements from HOAs, sometimes just from neighbors. The author acknowledges this, definitely. But she also really admires those who express their personal standards of decor in their yards, even if it's different from the norm. The real takeaway here, I think, is to genuinely consider your personal needs, your local regulations, rather than just, blindly following tradition.
Right. And if a traditional high-maintenance lawn just isn't for you, there are other ways, right, to cover the ground neatly and attractively. What are some alternatives?
Absolutely. The top contenders really are ground covers. Now, They might be more expensive to plant initially, that's true, but the key insight is they require far less upkeep than traditional lawns in the long run. They're also perfect for areas where mowing is just difficult. Think steep slopes, tight corners, under trees where grass always struggles, or, rocky terrain. Plus, ground covers offer more varied visual textures, different colors, compared to a uniform lawn. And, for the truly adventurous or ecologically minded, you could even let some property revert, go back to a more natural state. native shrubs, maybe a wildflower meadow that actually supports local wildlife.
It sounds like there's a lot of flexibility there. And I suppose our needs for a lawn can change over time, too, as life changes.
Precisely. Yeah, the author herself notes her own lawn shrinking significantly over about 15 years. Then later, she considered needing more green space again when her grandchildren came along. This really highlights the real-world relevance of adapting your landscape, adapting it to your life stage, your changing priorities. It's not a static decision, is it? It's an evolving one.
That adaptability is definitely key. So, okay, if you are opting for a lawn, whether it's new or you're renovating, the author's philosophy seems to be aim for good, not perfect. She argues, and it makes sense, that a healthy environment is more beautiful, more resilient than some unblemished, chemically dependent lawn, and, crucially, safer methods actually lead to better, more sustainable conditions in the long run. Lawn grasses, she says, are tough plants. They shouldn't need that much care if you choose the right ones and give them the right start. So what are the absolute foundational steps for preparing the site?
Right. When you're starting from scratch, it's a real opportunity, a chance to get it right from the beginning. First, you absolutely need to think about major grading. Check the drainage. Grass simply won't thrive where water just sits. Puddles. Make sure your lawn slopes away from building foundations. That's critical. And avoid planting lawns on slopes that are too steep to mow safely. You should terrace them, or maybe plant ground covers instead, like some of those no-mow native grasses. Beyond that, focus on removing obstacles. Clear out rocks larger than, say, an egg in the top few inches of soil. Those shallow rocks can cause brown patches later. And crucially, remove all buried debris. Things like old stumps, bits of concrete, old tree roots. You'd be surprised what's down there sometimes. The key nugget here really is that proper preparation, yeah, it's labor-intensive up front, but it saves you endless headaches down the line.
That makes perfect sense, like building a house on a strong foundation. Right, build a strong lawn. That leads us naturally to the soil itself. What's the most critical step there for a successful, permanent lawn?
Hands down, improving the soil. That is the single most important thing you can do. Ideally, your topsoil layer should be at least 6 inches deep. You can usually tell where it ends. It's often darker than the subsoil below. If it's shallow, you need to add more screened topsoil. New home sites, they're often the worst. Compacted subsoil from construction, maybe only a couple of inches of topsoil scraped back on. It's really better to just bite the bullet, as she says. Till up that compacted subsoil, incorporate lots of organic matter, then add 6 inches of good topsoil on top. Even good topsoil often benefits from improvement. A soil test is a fantastic first step. It tells you specific nutrient needs, helps you adjust the pH. You're aiming for around 6.5 for most grasses. Then incorporate plenty of organic matter. Things like peat moss, compost, well-rotted manure, leaf mold. For large areas, yeah, a rototiller helps. For smaller spots, a good rake or cultivator works fine. And if the soil is really compacted, you can spike it with a digging fork. That helps air and moisture penetrate down.
Okay, that definitely sounds as a lot of hard work up front, but I imagine it's a huge investment that really pays off.
Believe me, it absolutely will. It'll save you so much more work in the future by creating a self-sufficient, healthy lawn, one that's much less demanding of your time, your resources. It's about building resilience right from the ground up.
So once we've got the soil right, how do we decide what kind of green carpet we're actually putting down? I know golf courses have those really specific types, but those are clearly way too high maintenance for a typical home lawn.
You're absolutely right. It largely depends on what your lawn will be used for and, really critically, where you live, your climate zone. Most commercial lawn mixes, they often use imported European grass species. And while they have their place, they're often high maintenance, especially in climates they weren't really meant for. Some have even become invasive. This is why there's this growing movement towards native grasses. Now, for cool season grasses, typically used north of Zone 7, the key insight isn't just remembering the names, it's understanding that mixtures are your secret weapon. Different types germinate at different rates, they offer varied disease resistance, it leads to a healthier, much more resilient lawn overall. These grasses stay green in winter, but they can stress out in hot, dry weather. And you mow them relatively high, say 2 to 4 inches. Think of common Kentucky bluegrass mixtures or maybe fine fescues if you have shade.
Okay, that makes sense for cooler areas. And what about for warmer climates?
For warm season grasses, these are ideal for southern zones, places with long, hot summers. They'll go dormant, turn brown in cool weather. That's normal for them. They tend to be a bit coarser in texture and usually mow them short, maybe around 1 inch. Bermuda grass is very vigorous, very popular. St. Augustine grass offers good shade tolerance, which is useful. And then for folks in those transition areas, like maybe Zone 7, where summers are too hot for cool season grasses, but winters too cool for warm season ones. Well, options like tall fescue or turf-type perennial ryegrass offer good durability. The core idea really is matching the grass to your specific climate, not just picking what looks nice on the bag.
That adaptability, matching it to the place, is fascinating. And you mentioned native grasses earlier as a growing trend. What makes them such a strong contender for someone wanting a sustainable lawn?
Oh, native grasses really shine for sustainability. It's because when they're naturally adapted to your region, they need little to no extra watering once established. No chemical aids, minimal other care, some you don't even need to mow. You can let them flower, which is great for sustaining local wildlife. Buffalo grass, for instance, a Great Plains native, excellent for drier western areas. Needs very little fertilizing or watering once it's established. Native fescue is another low-maintenance cool season option, gives a softer, more informal look. And here's a surprising one, sedges. They aren't true grasses technically. Their stems are triangular. You know the saying, sedges have edges. But there are over 2,000 species native to the U.S. Many make fine lawns or ground covers. Some are even drought tolerant or can handle foot traffic. The insight here is really that embracing your local ecology, it can lead to the easiest, most beautiful lawn.
That's a great point about letting nature do some of the work. I've heard of people just letting their land kind of revert. Is there something to that idea?
Absolutely. Yeah, the author even discusses the volunteer lawn. These are areas that just grew naturally from cleared land. Repeated mowing over time simply favored the small, resilient grasses that were already there. Now, it might not be completely weed-free, sure, but often they look just as green and lush as any intentionally planted lawn. It's really a testament to nature's incredible resilience. It shows what can happen when you let nature take a bit of the lead. And it connects back to that idea of embracing good enough over some impossible perfect. Now, when it comes to actually getting started, planting, timing is really crucial. For those cool season grasses we talked about, late summer or early fall is generally best. This allows the roots to get established before winter hits, and you avoid competition from all those spring annual weeds. Warm season grasses, on the other hand, should be started in spring. Let them take full advantage of the warm growing weather.
Got it. Seasonality is definitely key. So for those opting to sow grass seed, what's the best approach to make sure it actually takes hold?
Okay, when sowing grass seed, first prepare the soil like we discussed, really important. Then let it settle for a bit. Or you can roll it smooth if it's very loose, ideally. Sow on a day when there's rain in the forecast. Honestly, nothing waters new seed quite like a good soaking rain. You can broadcast seed by hand for small areas or use a spreader for better accuracy on larger lawns. Usually around, say, 3 pounds per 1,000 square feet for a standard bluegrass mix. But check the specific recommendation. After sowing, lightly work the seed into the soil. Use the back of a rake or maybe a lawn roller. You want good seed-to-soil contact so it can absorb moisture. And don't worry about walking on it gently. Your footprints can actually help press the seed in. Keep the area lightly sprinkled until germination happens. Then make sure it gets about an inch of rain or irrigation per week. A light mulch, something like weed-free hay, can help prevent runoff from washing seeds away, especially on slopes. Putting down sod is another excellent option, of course, especially for some warm season grasses that don't seed well. The advantages are pretty clear. You get an instant lawn. It's easy to apply on slopes, no seed wash-off worries. And it's virtually weed-free to start. The downsides? Well, it's the higher cost, and it's definitely heavy work moving those rolls around. And remember, sod has very little soil attached, so you still need to prepare the ground deeply underneath, just like for seed. Lay it in staggered courses, like bricks. Fit the edges tightly together, and keep it well moistened until those roots take hold in the soil below.
Okay. And what about smaller scale planting? Are there other methods?
Yes. You can also plant plugs and sprigs. These are basically small sections of sod or individual rooted stems. You plant these individually, usually in a grid pattern. And vigorously spreading grasses will fill in the gaps surprisingly quickly. You can even sow some annual ryegrass with them just to deter weeds while the soil is bare. Annual rye dies out later. Just be sure, like with sod, to keep them well watered until they establish.
Right. So once your lawn is established, maintenance kicks in. And that depends on the grass type and, I guess, your personal standards. Of all the maintenance jobs, mowing seems like the big one, the most important. What are the key principles for mowing effectively, healthily?
Yeah, mowing is huge. There are a few key principles that make a really big difference for lawn health. First, correct height. Don't cut too short. This is probably the most common mistake. Most people mow way too low. It leads to yellowing, scalping weak roots. A taller lawn, say 3 to 4 inches for most cool season grasses, actually shades out weeds better and encourages deeper, more resilient roots. Mow regularly. This helps control weeds too and prevents those heavy clumps of clippings that can smother the turf below. The rule of thumb is never cut off more than about a third of the blade's length at any one time. Also, try to avoid mowing when the grass is wet. It cuts raggedly, makes a mess, and can spread disease. Be careful to avoid more damage around trees and shrubs. Those bark nicks are bad news. Creating mulched areas around them really helps prevent this. The key insight here: always leave the clippings on the lawn. Don't bag them. They decompose quickly and return vital nutrients right back to the soil. It's free fertilizer. And finally, always keep your mower blade sharp. Dull blades tear and fray the grass, making it look bad and much more susceptible to disease.
That leaving the clippings point sounds really important for natural feeding. Speaking of feeding, what's the author's advice on fertilizing? Do we need to do it much?
Well, when it comes to feeding, the core principle the author emphasizes is less is often more. If you've done that good soil preparation we talked about, you'll probably need to feed very rarely, maybe not at all. Overfeeding actually leads to problems. Things like increased disease susceptibility, thatch buildup, and it can harm beneficial soil organisms. Chemical fertilizers, especially synthetic ones, can burn the lawn if you're not careful. They also create a kind of chemical dependency, discouraging deep root growth. The best, gentlest solution is top dressing occasionally with compost. Homemade or bagged is fine, or maybe some dehydrated cow manure. Just a light dusting can do the trick, especially over any thin or bare patches. If you want a quick green up, you can use high-nitrogen natural materials like alfalfa meal or fish meal, or even spray on some compost tea.
That's a powerful message for sustainability, definitely. And what about watering? Does the same kind of less is more idea apply there too?
Watering follows a very similar principle. Water deeply or not at all. Shallow, frequent sprinkling is one of the worst things you can do. It makes the roots grow towards the surface, making them much less resilient to drought or stress. Water at the beginning or end of the day, when evaporation is minimal. Get the water down deep into the root zone. Deeper, less frequent waterings actually help the lawn resist disease. The key insight really is that if you find yourself watering a lot just to keep it green, you should probably consider if you should have less lawn area, or maybe switch to more drought-resistant grasses suitable for your climate.
Okay, another critical asset of lawn health you hear about is dethatching. What exactly is thatch and why should we even care about it?
Right, thatch. It's basically a layer of dead and living grass stems, roots, and shoots that builds up between the green vegetation and the soil surface. A little bit is normal, but if it gets more than about a half-inch thick, it can become a problem. You can harbor pests and diseases, and crucially, it acts like a barrier, blocking water and nutrients from actually reaching the soil and the roots. You can often diagnose it by a springy, spongy feel when you walk on the lawn, or just poke your fingers down into the grass. You'll see that thick, tangled layer above the soil. You can rake it out with a heavy-duty metal rake if it's not too bad, or for larger areas, run a detaching machine, sometimes called a power rake or verticutter. The best time to do this is usually early fall for cool climates and spring for warm climates, when the grass is actively growing and can recover quickly. Okay, now let's tackle the dreaded lawn weeds. The author defines them pretty simply. Anything growing that wasn't part of your original grass mix. Usually, a really vigorous, healthy lawn crowds out most weeds naturally. But if the lawn weakens, maybe the soil is infertile or compacted, then broadleaf plants can quickly take advantage and move in. Traditional weed control, of course, involves harsh herbicides, but the author strongly advises against these. Because of toxicity concerns for people, pets, wildlife, the problem of drift onto other plants, and the fact that they don't actually address the underlying issue of why the grass isn't strong enough in the first place. What's truly fascinating here, I think, is the author's rather radical approach. Tolerate many weeds, especially those that bloom. She describes her own lawn sometimes looking like a flowery mead from old medieval tapestries, actively encouraging butterflies and bees. Many common lawn weeds, things like dandelions, violets, even dwarf white clover, can actually be quite charming and beneficial. Clover, for instance, fixes nitrogen, enriching the soil naturally. For the less interesting weeds, the ones you really don't like, hand weeding sections at a time can make a big difference. And regular mowing also helps a lot by cutting off annual weed seeds before they get a chance to spread. The core insight here is maybe redefining weed. tried to embrace a bit more biodiversity in your lawn.
That's such a refreshing perspective, isn't it? Seeing the beauty and even the benefit in what we typically fight so hard against. But what about actual lawn diseases? If your lawn starts looking sickly, brown patches appearing, what's likely going on?
Yeah, most lawn diseases are caused by various types of fungi. But the good news is, if you establish and maintain your lawn well, following those principles we talked about, you likely won't see many serious problems. Healthy soil microbes and choosing resistant grass varieties are really your best defense. You might occasionally encounter things like brown patch that creates purplish-brown circles, usually in hot, humid weather. Often, the simplest treatment is just backing off on water and fertilizer for a bit. Or maybe snow mold, which causes grayish patches after the snow melts. You can help prevent that by raking up leaves and mowing one last time late in the fall. Dollar spot causes those whitish, silver dollar-sized spots. Fighting that often involves proper watering and maybe a top dressing of compost to boost soil health. The critical takeaway here is that overfeeding or overwatering are very often the initial triggers for disease outbreaks. A healthy, well-managed lawn is inherently more resistant. If you do have a persistent problem, your local extension service can often help identify it.
Okay, good to know. And finally, what about those pesky lawn pests? Grubs, chinch bugs, things like that.
Right, lawn pests. They typically don't cause serious widespread damage in a healthy lawn, and the best thing you can possibly do is encourage natural predators, birds, moles, beneficial insects. They do a lot of the work for you if you keep your yard poison-free. Insecticides are usually counterproductive because they kill these beneficials, along with vital earthworms and soil microorganisms that are crucial for lawn health. You might encounter grubs, those white C-shaped beetle larvae. They feed on roots, causing patches that sometimes peel back like carpet. Milky spore disease is a natural biological control that works well against Japanese beetle grubs specifically. Sod webworms are actually caterpillars. They chew on grass blades, creating small brown spots. They tend to prefer hot, dry grass, so sometimes just ensuring adequate water can help deter them. Chinch bugs are tiny little black and white insects. They feed above the soil, sucking sap, causing irregular brown patches, often in sunny areas. They also prefer dry conditions, so again, proper watering helps manage them. And just a quick note, some modern grass varieties, especially certain tall fescues and perennial ryegrasses, contain beneficial fungi called endophytes living inside the plant. These actually repel many common insects and diseases, a fantastic natural defense. Just be aware, if you have livestock grazing, some endophyte-enhanced grasses might not be suitable for their diet. Check the variety. But the main nugget here is simple. Try to let nature be your primary pest control. A healthy ecosystem manages itself pretty well.
It really sounds like an ongoing relationship you build with your lawn, doesn't it? But what if, despite your best efforts, maybe a lawn you inherited is just a complete disappointment? Is starting all over again the only option?
Not necessarily, no. If only parts of the lawn are problematic, you can often just patch those dead spots. You can cut them out and replace with pieces of sod, or just reseed those specific areas after improving the soil there. If the whole lawn feels compacted and struggles everywhere, a great solution is renting an aerator. That's a machine that pulls out little plugs or cores of earth. You can rake up these cores and use them to fill low spots, and then sprinkle good compost over the lawn to fall into the holes, improving air and water penetration. If the entire lawn is truly hopeless, however, maybe it's full of really difficult weeds or just the wrong type of grass entirely, then yes, you can certainly till up the whole thing. Add all those good soil amendments we talked about earlier, and then reseed as if you're starting a brand new lawn from scratch. If you really want to prevent the old grass and weeds from regrowing through your new seeding, you could strip off the old sod first, or maybe smother the whole area under black plastic for a growing season, about a year, to kill everything off before you start fresh.
Okay, so today we've taken a really comprehensive deep dive into, well, pretty much everything you need to know about lawns. From their surprising history and environmental impact to preparing the soil correctly, choosing the right grasses for your spot, and maintaining them with a more eco-conscious approach. We explored how to deal with weeds, diseases, and pests more naturally, and even looked at when it might be time to just start fresh.
So my final provocative thought for you to maybe mull over is this. Instead of chasing that chemically dependent, resource-intensive, perfect lawn ideal, consider what a truly healthy and resilient green space looks like for your lifestyle and for your local ecosystem. How might embracing just a little bit of wild, a little imperfection actually bring more joy, less work, and maybe greater harmony to your outdoor space?
That's a great question to end on. We really hope this deep dive has given you maybe a fresh perspective on that patch of green outside your door. Thanks so much for tuning into this deep dive, and we hope you feel a little more well-informed and maybe inspired to rethink your own relationship with your lawn.